All right, welcome to tonight's stream. Tonight's Attacktive Directory with TryHackMe. This room kind of shows off corporate networks and how they work and how to do things remotely on a if you're in a Windows environment. This is typical on most pen tests. So yeah, it's pretty good room to kind of learn and understand how the techniques work tonight. So looking at the room, we can see this one is very much guided. We have lots of different tasks to cover, and these tasks talk about how to install and packet, how to enumerate the DC, how to exploit Kerberos, get more out of the DC, and then elevate privileges, and then look at the flags. Again, I usually go through these rooms before I stream them, and I find this room is very useful, especially on an internal. And if you were to get creds or get a hash on any system, this is very on par with exactly what you would end up needing to do. Uh, in fact, that I did this last week on one of my internal assessments. So this is very real world, very impactful to know these techniques. So the first one is talking about installing packet in packet. And in packet is a software Python, bunch of Python scripts put together by Secure Auth Corp. Um, they're very well put together. They kind of get to the network type level of talking to Windows servers and things like that. Um, if you try to install the version from the Kali repos, you might run into some problems, and that's kind of where I did too. Um, and so in this instance, it's kind of telling you directly to install in packet. Um, and I've noticed some problems with that because it kind of some other packages or some other Python scripts might rely on the version that Kali installs to do certain things, and so you might break other things. And so this kind of comes into play when we use Docker again. So kind of give an example Docker file here is this is one that I created to make sure that I can run in packet in a Docker instance and not really mess with my OS system. And so we're seeing here, and if we kind of look at their Git repo, so this is their Git repo for Inpacket. Again, it has a couple of scripts, and Inpacket is installed default on Kali Linux, but again, it's not as updated as the repo is. We can see that this one had some pulls about like 13 days ago and stuff like that. Um, just talks about installing, and this is usually where you want to kind of focus in on when you're building these Docker files. So for my Docker file, what I ended up doing was pulling down the latest Kali image for Docker, and then doing an app install Python 3, Python 3 pip, and Git. Then we're Git cloning the Inpacket repo, and then we're running a pip3 install Inpacket. So we're installing it, and then we're changing our directory into Inpacket, and then we're going to run the pip3 install our requirements, and then running Python 3 setup py install, and then changing our directory to Inpacket examples. And Inpacket examples is mostly where all the scripts are at. This is where the meat and potatoes of it is. And these are all the different ones that you can use within Packet. A really good side note is that if you have not seen NetMux's operator handbook, Inpacket's mentioned on page 93 in the Kindle version. And it's a very good resource to have for this type of stuff because I find myself like very much looking up some of these commands and things like that, or options for that. Yeah, it's a 93 also in the physical book. I was just looking. So in the physical book and on the Kindle version of this, you can, again, have access to be able to look at like get NPR users, which we see right here, and that has all the options. Um, and he gives you examples too on how to check for Kerber roasting and over past the hash and past the key. How to do tickets for Linux usage so that you could log into these systems. How to generate silver tickets, golden tickets, how to do an SMB or NTLM relay to get a shell. So good reference to have. Um, and you can also Google too, but I find sometimes something like that is a way better resource than trying to find the exact thing that I need on Google. So again, we're building that that Docker file instead of doing this, and we'll use that instead tonight. In fact, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and spin off a shell, scan it to make sure everything is running. So for our number 2 terminal, what we'll do is I've built this already, and just to kind of give you an idea, sudo docker images. Here's my Unpacket. Um, Again, you would take this Docker file, pull it up here, and in your terminal after you have this set up, mine in my case is in opt Docker containers, and then Unpacket Docker. So we'll cd in there, just kind of clear that out. Whoops, helps if I type correctly. And then you'll do a Docker, again, sudo. If you're root, it doesn't matter. I'm just used in the habit of doing sudo most of the time. If you're on the newer version of Kali, you might not be logged in as root, so it's just good to get in that habit. But sudo docker build, you'll do a dot and then -t, and you'll tag that with whatever you want to name it. In my case, I named it Unpacket. So it'll read the current Docker file in that directory, and it's going to tag it in packet as in packet, and that's why we see this as in packet as part of my repository when I do sudo docker images. So just to kind of give you an idea there how you could build this, if you want to copy that code, I'll leave it on the screen for a couple seconds here so you can copy it down. But it's not too much there. Okay. Hopefully you got it. If not, you could go back and pause the video and copy the rest of the code there. So let's run this. So sudo docker run. We're gonna do a -v. We want to give it maybe some access to things in our current in our current directory. We have an Attacktive Directory here. So the way that we do that is when you run the Docker file, we're going to do a -v, which mounts the volume, and we're going to call this command first, which is print working directory, and it basically runs print working directory and then replaces that result in this command line right here. And it's just a shortcut so I don't have to remember whatever exact directory that I'm in. And then we're inside the Docker container, we're just going to mount that to temp. And then after that, we need to specify that we want an IT, which is an interactive TTY, and then we're going to call the actual Unpacket Docker container. And then we want to run a command on that Unpacket container, and in our case, we're going to run bin bash. So if everything's right, everything runs, what you'll see is a root at a number, and this is the actual instance of that Docker container, and you can see that we're already CD'd into Unpacket examples, which is the same place that we had for our work dir. That sets that current working directory, and everything's installed, ready to go on this Unpacket example. So if we do these ls command on here, we see all the same type of examples that we saw in that repo. And so this also gives us, because we mounted that volume, if we ls/temp, we see all the files that were in that current working directory. And so now we have access to both things, and we can write out files into temp, and it will write it into our home directory on our host system. So again, this is why Docker, I highly recommend that you get used to using Docker and things like this. It's a way to keep your operating system clean, but also use tools like this and not have to worry about if you're messing up other packages. Okay, so let's get off the soapbox here. So now we have the Docker container running. That's great, right? We need to go ahead and start working on our host and enumerating ports and scanning ports and figuring out what's running on this system. So we have our host IP, and we're going to do our same steps that we always do when we do this scanning. So we'll create a targets file. In this case, there might be already one. Yep, there was. So we'll just clean that out. We'll go ahead and paste that new IP in there. And we're going to run our initial nmap scan. We'll do a -il targets. And we'll just label this one OA, init scan. And we'll do -t5. We want to get this scan done as fast as possible. And -pn. We don't want it to ping it. So we'll go ahead and run that. And then while that's running, we'll go ahead and get the detailed scan because that one was done as quick as possible. We can actually just reuse this same system, the same box up here then. So now we'll change this to detailed scan. And this is where we'll get into more details. So when I do my detailed scan, again, I kind of want to look at some of these ports and see what's going on, understand that better to better, better know what scripts to run. Again, we want nmap to kind of enumerate our things and figure out what that is. So we'll start with the default. We'll start with version. And then from here, we'll look at, okay, we do have some known, RPC and SMB ports. We see 445 and stuff like that. So we'll run SMB, and I put a star here. And what that tells nmap to is just run any SMB, any script after that. As long as it started with SMB. If there was something before SMB, it doesn't start with that. But that's the way it kind of runs. And then some of the other things that we notice too is that we see LDAP. And LDAP, if you don't know, is the lightweight directory active protocol. And this is the Linux equivalent of AD. And Active Directory is basically Microsoft's version of LDAP. You can query it with doing LDAP commands and things like that. We also see that the LDAP SSL port's open. We also see there's some global LDAP ports. So we should go ahead and query LDAP also. And then what else? So we got that. We want to do anytime you're running these type of scripts, what I end up finding out is that sometimes some of them will hang, and I like to put a timeout on them. And this is something I've started kind of doing now. Is that I'll put a script timeout on there so that they don't sit here forever and hang up, because some of the versions scripts will literally just keep trying to figure out a version no matter what. All right, so that looks pretty good. We're inputting our targets list. We're outputting a detailed scan. We're running a default version, any SMB scripts, anything with called LDAP. We're putting a timeout. We're doing the T5, and we're not doing a ping. So if we run this, this should hopefully come back pretty quickly. But if not, we can move on to the next task while this is doing its thing. So we'll just increase verbosity. I just typed V twice on there. So the next thing we can also look at is what tool will allow us to enumerate port 135 or 445. Again, if you didn't know this, there are tools that kind of are built in for SMB, and one of the popular ones is called enum for Linux. So if we look at enum for Linux, we'll just make this nmap a little bit smaller. We'll set this up here. So enum for Linux is a simple wraparound SMB Samba or SMB, and what we just need to do is specify the IP address that we want to do that at. We can do all simple enumerations. Um, we display enumerate users via RID cycling. Uh, that again is where accounts are created and they're given a number, and that it'll cycle through those numbers and figure that out. So let's do enum for Linux. We have our IP address that again could be, if we do cat target, and then we're going to do a -a, and let's go ahead and pipe this into T, and we'll call this enum-output.text. And so again, what I'm doing is I'm calling, because we already have our IP in targets.txt, is that I'm calling for it to cat that targets.txt, replace that in this command at this point, and then run the rest of it. And it's just, again, a shortcut to kind of keep using things that you already set up before. So you'll see that it pulled out that IP address without any problems here. And so now it's going to do enum for Linux. So we can say this is enum for Linux. All right. So we're looking for how many ports are open under 10,000, and we're also looking for a domain name of this machine, and then what invalid TLD people commonly use for Active Directory domains. Again, this could be very subjective, so we kind of want to see some of these results maybe come back first to see if we get an idea here. Currently, so we see there's the domain name of the system. Did it ask for that one? Yep, there it is. All right, so we will copy that. So we still don't know what that TLD is. And a TLD is like a .com, .org, usually a dot something. So it tried to enumerate some users. Oops. Sorry, couldn't find a work group. Got a domain work group name. It didn't show it. There's the domain name. Okay. Let's see what else we got. It tried to do query display information, enum DOM users, NT status access denied. SMB1 is disabled. Attempted to map shares. We didn't get anything from there. So, kind of looks like some of the system has been locked down a little bit, which is good. We did get some usernames though, as it works through the SIDS, and so we can see here we got an administrator, we got a guest. So we know that the system is labeling itself as active direct. We see the default account, WG DAGU a utility account. There's a none, which that's probably, we get a bunch of unknowns. These are usually like false positives. And it's still going through there. So that looks like nmap's done up here. So let's see what nmap figured out. So we can see that it ran a bunch of these SMB scripts, which is really great and helps us out with the enumeration phase. So we see that we're running a domain at TCP 53. So that's usually an indication of a domain not usually set up correctly or things like that. So there's some LDAP results. So we ran the LDAP scripts. We can see the domain functionality of 7, forest functionality of 7. All right, so then here's we got the domain root naming convention. So the DC, it calls itself spooky sec. So we're on the spooky sec um, domain, and then the DC of .local. So this is where we're run into the TLD that they're looking for. All right, and then we're still stuck on how many ports exactly open. Now we kind of want more detail. We need to count these out a little bit. So we'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A lot of details about the LDAP there. We can kind of see all that stuff there. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Looks like 13. We'll try that. Nope. All right, that's fine. We can do, let's just open up another one. We'll do an nmap -il targets. We'll do the ports of 1, 2, I think it asked us, yeah, 10,000. So we'll just do 10,000. Again, T5 and -pn, and that should go really quick. While it's looking at it, we can see that it found another, it found the Attacktive Directory computer account, and that's a $sign after that. That's a computer account usually. We see there's some, it pulled out some domain admins, domain users. These are domain groups. These are SIDs for those groups. So we're looking at very much like a domain controller here. We can see, enterprise admins, that's schema admins, cert publishers. Those are big indications that we're looking at a domain controller. All right, so there we go. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we got 15 ports. All right, pretty sure, I think I counted that wrong, but 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, I got 15, but it is not taking it. If Windows is being Windows, only 11 should be open. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So yeah, it's a little bit more than an 11. It's glad that they kind of put that hint there because that'd be really frustrating. All right, so let's look at the next portion of this task. And so this is where we're starting to dive into some actual tools and things like that. Now it's asking us to enumerate the DC. We can see that Kerberos is running, and so we're going to start using this tool called Kerberoot. It's a brute forcing discovery of users, passwords, and even password spraying. They're providing a user list or a password list to kind of cut down on time. And one of the big things that they're pointing out here is that some domains will have an account lockout policy um, that you can't figure out beforehand, so you could end up locking those out. Um, and some of the tools will kind of tell you that beforehand if you get that level. And again, it depends on configurations and things like that when you're looking at it from the network side. Um, so we're seeing here Nmap doesn't really give us anything about that. And then Enum for Linux didn't really give us much about that too. So we wouldn't know what the password policy is. If it was able to maybe enumerate that from a guest or an anonymous situation, you would probably have more details on there. So what they usually recommend on like an internal attack like this, then uh, again in an authorized environment, is that you do what's called password spraying. So you pick one password and then you spray you change numerous user accounts for that. And there's many tools out there for that. Black Hills Information Security has a couple of them and things um, via PowerShell or at a Kerberos level. Um, we already have our Docker container set up, and so we'll download Kerberoot to this just to kind of keep our system clean and stuff like that. Again, we don't know. It's asking us to look at this. If we look at the repository, they're just providing binaries. So there's no idea what's going on with these. We can see if we can copy the link location, and then what we'll do is in our Docker container here, we'll save that, right? So we'll go back to our CD root directory. Oops. Again, I'm inside my Docker container, so I'll do a wget. I'll try to get that. I, of course, didn't have wget installed, so we'll have to app install wget. And again, Docker is a very naked version of Kali. It says whatever's the bare minimum to get things running, and then after you do that, it's whatever programs or additional packages that you install. So in my case, my Docker container only had 3 packages that I installed. So it's very naked. So I had to install wget. So we're going to get that file. We get it. It's pulled now. So we should be able to see it. There it is right there, Kerberoot. If we file that, I just want to make sure that it is correct. Yep, so it is an ELF binary. We'll chmod plus that. And so now when we ls it, it's not going to show up in color, but now it's executable. All right, so we need to use this against that domain controller. But before we can use it, we need to know the commands, right? So now that I've made that executable, I just want to show this real quick. If we do an ls kerberoot, we see now that it's read write executable, read executable, read executable. So that's good, right? So now if we do kerberoot and we can try -h first. All right, so we get the list of commands here, and we'll see that it's to quickly brute force Active Directories through Kerberos pre-authentication, used on internal Windows domains with access to a domain controller. So this will count as a lockout. So again, this tool is querying something and then just attempting it. All right, so the task is what command within Kerberoot will allow us to enumerate valid username. So if we look back here, we want to figure out user usernames. And that looks like that's going to be user enum right here. So now we need to run this, right? So inside the container, if we need to specify a DC as a string. The problem is, right, is that if we do it like a ping for spooky sec, let's see, what was it before? Oops. Let's close code. We're not going to look at that anymore. I keep going over to it. So if we tried to look up spookysec.local, we're not gonna know where that's at because we don't have that domain set up for us. Ping's not even installed. But we can set that up by editing our Etsy host. So if we do a nano Etsy host, all right, we'll have to install nano, and we'll go ahead and install ping. We'll just leave it at nano. All right. So now we have this, we'll go ahead and again, you could do this on your host. You could add the spooky domain or whatever, spookysec.local there. And we're just going to go ahead and point this to that IP address. Oops. We'll need to put the one in front there, and we'll just clean this back up again. All right. All right, and again, that was important because what it's going to do is try to look up that host name, and it's not going to know where it's at. Now it will. And that didn't mess up our Etsy host file. That just puts it in the Docker container. So again, keeping that clean. So now we can do from before, if we looked at the Kerberoot -h, what we're going to end up doing is Kerberoot, we want to do a user enum. Whoops, you move the oh goodness. All right, user enum, and then we're going to call --dc. We're looking at that spooky sec.local. So we see that we're calling the domain controller here. And then we want to let's see, put that into -o. We'll put that in again in our temp directory is right into our local host, so we'll go ahead and do that. And we're gonna put that into a let's just call it DC user list.txt. All right, apparently we did not do something correctly. Oh, username word list. It's looking for a word list. So username flags. So we need to provide it a user list, a potential user list, looks like. And so we'll do, again, we had downloaded the one from before. If you were to need to get one, you know, the best way would be doing your OSINT and getting a list of users, possible users, things like that. You could have got this from maybe if you're on the network, which this is what this is supposed to be ran against. maybe you saw user accounts uh, running through responder or things like that, but you just didn't get the relay working correctly, or through other methods, you got this user list. Must specify full domain. All right, that's what I'm pretty sure I did. Let's see here. DC spooky sec, and then dash D spooky sec again. Dot local. There we go. So this is directly talking to Kerberos, using that user list, which if we, while this is running, we'll look at me. This was a user list that we downloaded from the website. You can see here that they're fairly big. This would be something that you've came up with via your OSINT or LinkedIn, things like that. You kind of see that they almost look like maybe a first name and a numbers, or um, name of specific rooms. You could also generate this from maybe their website and like a contact us section, or HR team, or things like that. Maybe during a phishing campaign you got list of emails, things like that. Again, if you're authorized to do that type of stuff. Don't just go be hacking things and don't think you're gonna not get in trouble. So we see a James, a service admin, another James with a capital J in this time instead of lowercase. Robin, Darkstar, administrator, backup, Paradox, another James, another Robin. What notable account is discovered? These should jump out to you. What other notable account is discovered? So we're looking for two accounts that kind of stand out. I mean, besides the standard maybe user, so we got James, Robin, Darkstar is not usually a name that I would think is a user, but okay. Administrator, that's probably again a duh. So we do see a service account. We do see a backup, a Paradox. So you're almost doing a little bit of guessing here. Um, Service admin, I would say, is definitely notable. Anytime I see anything with a service name in it, then I know that that's usually associated with some kind of, maybe updates or things like that, scanner and such. That's going to be going through the domain with something, a password that doesn't change that often, or it's going to have access to a lot of things, right? So we could try service admin for this one here. All right, and then the second one, just going down the list, we see administrator. That looks like it's too big for that one. We got a backup. All right, cool. So we got backup also. So now after we look at the domain, and again, this is still going, we can see that we attempted to abuse a feature within Kerberos with an attack called RSREP roasting. It's when a user account has the privilege does not require pre-authentication set. That means that it does not provide valid identification before requesting a Kerberos ticket. And so these are, again, accounts that don't fully authenticate before they get a Kerberos ticket, and that's bad. So the only thing that's required to figure these out is a valid set of usernames that we enumerated from Kerberoot. and now we're going to start using the in-packet tool. So we're going to use get np users .py. So we'll switch over to, we are still in this, so we're waiting for this to finish up, I guess. Actually, we'll just go ahead and cancel it since we're good. Okay, all right. We kind of moved into the root directory when we did this earlier. So we need to go back into our in-packet directory. So we cd in-packet examples, and we're back into where this is all at. So if we run get np users -h, we can see here that we need to do a target with a username. We can request for TGT tickets or ticket granting tickets for users and output them into a John the Ripper or a hashcat format. And then specify an output format, and then the format, provide a users file. So that's similar to what we just did. And then if we have authentication, we could use it, right? So, pretty straightforward. We have a list of users that we know, so we could try that first, right? And so we'll do Python 3 get np users, and we want to, says we need to specify a target and a username. So let's see if we can do the users file first and see if that'll get us where we need to go. So we'll do users file, right? And that's going to be a dash, it's in temp, and then users. It's not automatically loading, so user list.txt, whoops. Let's add some more time on this box here. Oh no, did it go away? Nope, there it is. All right, cool. So this is kind of pointing out that we have two potential user accounts that we can query a ticket for with no password, based on kind of what we saw before. What we need to do then is, go back to this, and that's what we need to do. So for the target, we're going to do spooky sec.local, and we'll try the first account that we had, right? It was a service admin. And then you could just kind of go through each account and see what happens. And then we're going to specify no password. We don't have a password, so we don't want to be asked for it. Oh, I put too many dashes. All right, so it was able to successfully grab a TGT for service admin there. That's what you're seeing. So we'll want to save that, right? So we'll do a /temp, and we'll call this service svc-admin tgt.txt. Cool. We'll clear this out. We'll try the other account too, just to kind of see what would happen. So the other account was backup. And user backup does not have a UF don't require a pre-auth set. And we could have done this. We could do this for every one of the users. I'm kind of curious now too to see if it would let us do that. That user list. Let's try that real quick. So again, as one of the options here, we have a user's file. So let's try that and see if that would work. So we're going to do dash user file, and that's in temp slash user list. So yeah, it requires the target. So we could try for the target spooky sec dot local. See if that works. Nope. All right, so we're back to service admin, and then we could try. Let's see if the user file works here. Temp, and then user list dot text. Users file. So it's asking us for the password. We need to put the dash no pass or one dash. Yep, so it looks like it's looking for those. So James has UF don't require preset. So we could try James too and see if we can get his TGT. So it looks like you had to have a valid account. We'll try it with backup real quick after this too. So you'd have to find one of these accounts that actually let you do this. All right, so this is gonna go on forever. So let's do the backup and see if that would have worked, and then we'll look at James's TGT too. Grab that. Yeah, so I wonder if you. Okay, so it did say James doesn't require it again too. I wonder if we just specified any account, like not a real account. Ooh, okay. Let's see if it pulls up James again. It does. All right, cool. So that's good to know. Let's not do the list and see if James will come out and give us a TGT also. No, yeah, you have don't require pre-auth set. Okay, so that is a way. If you know the domain, you could just specify a fake account and then see if that would work out until it specified that there was a real account in the um. I would think that eventually would get there. So something to test. All right, I digress. All right, so we're able to, which user account can you query a ticket for no password? So we got this from service admin. All right, so looking at the hash cat example wiki, what type of Kerberos hash did we retrieve from the KFC? Specify the full name. bum, bum. Um, what is this one called? I want to say it's what is it, KRB, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Kerberos was KRB. That's in there. Let's look back at the hash and see if we can figure it out. So we'll go back into our directory here. We output that as, let's see here. There's our service admin TGT. So if we cat service, oops, admin TGT, there it is. Let's look up this and see if we can find that here. Oops, I didn't copy it. That looks like that's what it is. 18200 Kerberos AS rep type 23. Let's see if that's what that wants. Kerberos. It looks like that's going to be it. Yep. Cool. What mode is the hash? That tells you right there. And then it says crack it. What's the user's account's password? Again, so for this one, like, Hashcat doesn't work on this system that great. So I'm going to use John instead. For John, what you then would do is dash format. You'd specify that format, which is KRB. It was 5AS something. Yeah, 5AS rep. 5AS rep. And then we want to there's the hash. We want to specify a word list, and that's going to equal. They gave us a password list, so that's one that we're going to use. Again, you would, you run it up against your own word list or things like that. So in this case, they gave us one. Text and yeah, now password dot out or dot pot for that, and let's see. Cool, there it is. Pretty quick. Again, they gave us a password list, so you could have ran Rocky or things like that. All right, so now we got a credential. All right, so now with the user account's credentials, we can significantly access within the domain. We're going to attempt to enumerate any shares on that domain. So what utility is used to map remote shares? This for me is SMB map. I always end up using SMB map to kind of do this. Now that we have credentials, we could do this too. So we could try SMB map. We'll just do -H to make sure we know what we need to do. So we'll do a -U for the user, which is going to be SVC-ADM. we'll do the dash password of that, and then dash D is going to be the spooky sec, and then dash H is the host, which will be, oops. Which is going to be the IP address in this case. So again, we could do $ that cat targets dot text. There you go. So this shows you that service admin has access to these locations. We have no access to remote admin. We do have read-only access to backup. We have read-only to IPC, net login, and sysvol. So for in our case, the big thing I would focus on probably is mounting backup and seeing what's in there. We'll see where this goes. So what utility can we map a remote? Hey, Nexi. Map a remote share. I think they want us to use SMB client here. Yep. And then to list the shares is -L. So I gave you a different option there. I did SMB map instead. How many remote shares did we find? So if we go back, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One particular share had contain access. Which share is it? So then this is where we'd need to start mounting it, mounting the shares. So to mount a share, I like to mount it to my local directory, and then that way, if it's a big file, it copies over cleanly. So we'll see that I've already made a directory called share here, and what we then do is a mount -T CIFS, which is Common Internet File System, and then we're gonna do a //IP. Whoops. So again, because we are trying to, whoops. .text. So again, that's going to cat that file, put that in there, and then work from there. Backup, and then we will mount it to. We need to specify the user because we are using a specific user. So -O for user equals a service admin. And .share. And so now we need to put in that password, which we got from earlier. And I probably typed it wrong. Yeah, crackback exec would probably be great for this. In this case, we're trying to mount the share, and so we need to be able to get that MANGEMENT 2005. Alright, apparently I am doing something wrong. Let's see here. It is trying to do service admin at the IP address, so that is working correctly. We are doing backup, that is right. Wouldn't work with yeah, mouse, yeah, okay. And then we're mounting to the share, so maybe I'm just not printing it out right. Let's see where, if we had. We can copy it from up here. I might be typing fat finger in something. Alright, well. Oh yeah, there you go. Alright, so we got mount, CI, vers. Oh yeah, good call. If it is version 2, then we need to specify that version. Vers equals 2.0. Thanks for this. We got the... Oh, is it username? And maybe that's what I'm messing up. No, I got user. We'll try username. We'll go with what you got. And then password. Equals... Dun 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 dun. Alright, let's see. Nope. Vers, not vars. Look at that. Coming in with the win. Thanks, Sandwich. So now if we look at the ls share, let's do a -alr. And we see there's some backup credentials there. Awesome. So we'll do a cat. We could actually just copy these. Let's copy these. Thanks for following there. So we got the share, we got backup, and then we're gonna we'll just put that in our current directory there. All right, so now we got this backup credentials. We can look at this, see what we got going on here, and we get some jumbled data. Usually, whenever I see anything like that, just looking at it, we could throw this into CyberChef. We could throw this into different things, but just that formatting and stuff kind of screams to me base 64, right? Oops, 64, not 54. And so I tried that first, and there it is. So now we have the backup accounts, username and password, which is super great. So we see there's one particular share, so we got that one. What's the contents of the file? Whoops, I did not copy that. And then you saw me do that there, so then all right, cool. So we were done with that task. Now we're elevating our privileges. And so like I said, this is pretty on par with things that you would see in a typical internal environment. I would have gotten credentials most likely from like an SMB relay and then got on the system and then would have done either like Memcached or something like that and then started doing the same type of stuff, enumerating for other privileges, looking for like that service account, stuff like that, and then dumping its TGT and seeing if I could crack it, or replaying that TGT to get somewhere else on the network, and then just keep reiterate doing the same task over and over and over until you find the one where you get domain admin, and that's kind of where crack map exec definitely shows its power in that type of sense. Is once you get a good hash. Um, like I said, on one time I was able to find like 20 different systems that this guy was an admin on. So now we got a user account creds, username accounts backup, yada yada. Backup account for the domain's usually unique. So this is kind of, again, giving you that background information, kind of showing you what it will look like. Then talking about secret dump. So again, this is where that Docker container kind of comes into play. This is where I had this before. If you missed that, I showed earlier on the stream the Docker container that I used to build for the Unpacket stuff. If you just try to update your Unpacket packages on Kali, there's been users that have reported that it's not working correctly. So doing Docker kind of gives you that ability to run things in a clean environment and make sure that that's what's happening. Um, so we're going to use secret stump. Secret stump is in part of the example scripts. So again, we'll do Python 3 secret stump. And so same thing, secret dump's going to need a domain user name, password, and then in our case, we're wanting to dump the DC, and so we're going to look for just the DC, and we'll need to provide that credential. So we'll do this again, and we're going to do the domain, which was spookysec.local slash backup. That was the one that we're going to go for now that we have his credentials. And then just the DC. And let's go ahead and copy the password into our clipboard here. Go back to our container. And it said service unknown. Alright, what did I do wrong? Let's see on my notes here. Oh, I need to specify just DC before that. Nope, something's not going right. Let's see. We were able to talk to SpookySec earlier, so we want to say that that's fine. Let me just make sure. So we cat our etc host file. We do have spookysec.local there. Just DC spookysec local slash backup. No, let's do it the other way. We got to do backup at spookysec. Backup at spookysec local. Helps if I spell backup also correctly. There we go. All right, and then we're pasting in that password, and apparently I did not paste it in correctly. All right, let's copy it one more time, make sure we got it. We'll copy, going back here, and we're pasting. Backup at spookysec local, that is correct. All right, I guess we're gonna be typing it out. Oh, I copied R, that's why. Backup 2517860. Alright kids, helps if you get the right actual password. And so what this is doing is logging in and it is dumping the SAM and the system and combining those to get these hashes for all the accounts on there. So we did this, but again, working out of a Docker container, that means that this data is ephemeral. So if we do not copy it to our mounted share, once this Docker container is gone, we wouldn't have anything to show any proof that we did this. So earlier, I again mounted the temp directory to the Attacktive Directory. So anything I put in here will be in this directory. So we'll see here right now, currently, I do not have anything like this, but what I'll do is I'll say secrets dash dump dash output text. And then there it is. So that's now on our local system, which is really great. So now we have the domain controller username and hashes. So what method allowed us to dump ntdist? And that is going to be it's asking for method. So this is just DC. Is that what that's looking for? Oops. What is this looking for? Read the secret dumps output. What method allowed us to dump? Okay. So there it is right there. DRSU API method. I honestly, I'm not 100% sure what that method is, so I'd have to go look it up. So it's asking for the administrator's NTLM hash, so that's this here. So quick bit of trivia, or just for people to kind of know, if it's a newer system, the first half of the hash is always the same for every user. And this was the difference between Landman and NTLM. So Landman would take your characters, your password, split it up into 8 characters, and then hash them. And then when all the systems kind of switched over to NTLM version 1, they still kind of had that have that backwards compatibility. And so what you'll notice here is that this front half is the same as this one, is the same as this one, and is the same as this one, and all the others, right? And the reason for that is it's blank. The NT hash is blank. The other part of the hash is not. This is the actual password. And so depending on the tools that you end up using, sometimes this matters and sometimes that doesn't matter. Some tools will want both parts of the hash, and depending on the tool, it will only dump the last part of the hash. And so that can be confusing to someone, new to security or trying to use these tools. They'll keep trying to put in this hash, but the tool wants both parts of the hash. And so if that happens, just kind of look up whatever NTLM, blank hash or whatever it is. Yeah, we can look at that later there. Sandwich. Sorry about that. All right. So let's see what TryHackMe is looking for, right? They want, it doesn't look like they want the full hash. They just want the back hash. So we'll just copy that back part. All right, what method of attack could allow us to authenticate the user without a hash? And this is pass the hash. This is what we could use now that we have hashes. Using a tool called EvilWinRM, what option would allow us to use the hash? And that's going to be -H. And so ~H, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, there we go. And so now we're on to the final part, and it's the flags part. This didn't really get into too much with EvilWinRM, which I found was kind of sad, but we're going to do that. We have a hash, we have an admin hash, and I wanted to kind of show some of that off. So in my case, again, I love Docker containers, and Evil WinRM is a Docker instance that you can pull. So here it is in Docker Hub. Here's the command. If you have Docker installed on your system, you can pull this. And again, Docker is available for practically everything, even Raspberry Pis. So you could run Evil WinRM off of Raspberry Pi. Um, I've already downloaded this. So for my instance, what I'm going to end up doing is sudo docker run, and we are going to dash it and just call that image, which I did not grab the O, so I need to remember to put that. So O, that helps if it was O and not 0. And so when you run this, we can see that it is missing some arguments. And we want to run dash I for IP. We could even just put spooky sec on this one because again we have that dot local, and then dash U. We know it's administrator. Do they allow us to do hash? There it is, dash hash. And again, here's where we're gonna play to see what's required. Is it the full hash or just the back part of the hash? So we'll copy just the back part and try that first. All right, that should hopefully be it. Let's see. Check your Etsy host to make sure spookysec. All right, fine. We'll put the IP address. Fine. Fine. The other part that we could do is we could cheat. We could do cat targets dot text. Now, so Evil WinRM is possible because we have RM enabled on the host. And so now we are an administrator and we have administrative level to the system. If we do help, that didn't really help us. I forget how to use Evil WinRM. There's so many different nuances with this one. I think it has it right here. Yeah, so you have upload, download, oh, menu. Okay. All right, so if we type menu, there we go. So you have a DLL loader, you have donut loader, invoke binary, bypass for AMZ. In this case, all we're looking for is just those. We're just looking for these flags now. But you have administrative levels to this, so you could look at the files in the documents. And this is just logged in as the administrator, and it provides you a way to do this. So we can see there's the root flag there. If we Now we're looking at the users, we can do backup. This is PowerShell running on the system. So you could run, you can import other PowerShell scripts and things like that to help you further enumerate. And that's kind of what this was talking about earlier right here is if you specify wherever your scripts directory is or executables, those will be available in this Evil WinRM session when you do that. And so this is where you start building up those things of tools that you like to use, like having power exploit on your system or things like that. So like I could have specified -s/ops/power exploit, and even though that's on my Kali system, when it established that WinRM session, it would be available for me to run here in this Evil WinRM session. And so that gives you the ability to keep, using those tools in other areas. But yeah, so that's pretty much the box. Besides, just finding the flags, which I'm gonna kind of leave up to you to figure out. It's not that hard. We're already admin. We just need to look at the locations in the box here. You can kind of see where they're at via the users. But that's it. That's the majority of it. That gives you really good foothold on this and shows you some really good tools that are definitely used on an internal test. Um, Pretty much every time that I'm on an internal test, these are tools that I've used. So